sure people will also join in. So for anyone who doesn't want to be recorded, the session is going to be recorded. So please, if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your cameras. That way you can show you're not in the recording. My name is Neha, and I'm going to be moderating this session, and I'm very pleased and honored to have Etienne Salborn here with me from Social Innovation Academy, and he's going to be speaking about turning challenges into opportunities. And we will have about 25 minutes to hear Etienne's story, after which we'll open the floor for some questions, and so that you can hear more details building off of his story and dive into any questions that you might have. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to add them in here in the Mentimeter. I'm putting in the link right now. So when we do get to the Q&A part, we have a list of questions already to get us moving. So without further ado, I'll just hand over to Etienne to tell us about his story.
Yeah, wonderful. So thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor and a pleasure. Let me share my screen. I hope that works. You can see it all right?
Yes, we can see.
All right. So yeah, my name is Etienne, and I'm originally from Germany, but I've been living in Uganda for 8-9 years now. So it's been quite a while. And I want to take you on a small journey, how I got to Uganda and what we're doing here as SINA, the Social Innovation Academy, and also how that is all connected to the Teal movement. And to start, I have to take you back into 2006. So that's me in the Kankoba orphanage home in Uganda. And after finishing high school in Germany, I didn't want to join the obligatory military service then, but rather was looking for alternatives and found an opportunity to do volunteering in Uganda. And so for 1 year, I was living and working with orphans in the orphanage in rural Uganda, and then realized that actually the children, when they finished primary school, they were not able to continue going to school. So I looked for a solution and was able to support them through a sponsorship program that allowed them to go to different boarding schools. And yeah, even though I went back over the years, I was continuing that sponsorship program. Every year, new kids would join, and I was able to find more sponsors for them. And then started in 2009 an organization in Germany that was managing those sponsorships. And that was the first journey to create an organization. And over the years, more and more kids would join. And in 2013, the first generation then of these sponsored kids finished high school, but then wasn't able to, unfortunately, find jobs, because Uganda has one of the highest youth unemployment rates in Africa. And they were also not able to join university because the tuition fees are very, very high. So the goal of young people now becoming adults, being able to sustain themselves, was not met. And that was the starting point to come back to Uganda for me, and together sit in an open space to discuss what options, what solutions can we create. And actually it was clear what is needed is maybe a space where young people would be able to create their own jobs if there's hardly any jobs available. And that's what started then in 2014 to shape as the Social Innovation Academy, or in short, SINA. And we started in 2014, and this is how the first community looks today. It is still in the same district as the orphanage, and has over the years evolved to create a self-organized model that allows not just orphans, or grown-up orphans, but marginalized youth or youth from difficult backgrounds to create their own solutions, to unleash their potentials, and be able to create, in the end, social enterprises that are able to solve challenges in the community and in the environment. And it's all about self-organization, and we have created a 5-step model that allows the youth to do that, in the confusion stage, the first stage, often overcome limiting beliefs. We're working as well a lot with refugees who sometimes have already given up in life, who are maybe saying, now I'm a refugee, my life is already done, I'll not achieve anything anymore. So with that mindset, it will be hard for the person to really achieve anything. So in the confusion stage, they're setting up new beliefs that are not limiting. So now I have a new life in Uganda, I can create it, or I can wait to to be resettled or to just wait for aid, or I can be the driver of my own future and create a future for myself. So in that confusion stage, that goal setting and overcoming limiting beliefs is all happening, as well as some tools for the young people to be able to then come into the emerging stage, which is where self-organization is happening. The community is completely self-organized. We're using holacracy and have even innovated further on it through symbiotic enterprise, whereby the young people are creating, learning the skills and the expertise they need by actually taking up responsibilities. So everything is managed by the beneficiaries, who are not really beneficiaries, but we call them scholars, because you cannot really distinguish if someone is a scholar, a beneficiary, or a team member, because everything is managed by everyone. There's different roles, different circles. Everyone has their own accountabilities, responsibilities, and that allows everyone to gain the skills they need for later their own enterprises as well. And while doing the work, naturally, new ideas emerge. Why can I not, if I'm in charge of water, why can I not maybe combine this idea with this idea and come up with a new product or new service? And then those ideas are being tested in the concentration stage, incubated, they form teams, and if they find traction, if they can find market, can find customers, then the idea starts shaping and become a social enterprise. If it doesn't work out, then go back to the emerging stage and take up more responsibilities, more skills to improve and try again and grow along the way until one day something is working out. And then the enterprises that do work out, we continuously support them to become independently registered. Many of them as well are following the path of a Teal organization. And then they reach into the mastery stage where learning never stops, but continuously now having created jobs, stay engaged and also be inspirational for the new generations. So that's a quick run through of how we achieve that. And the goal is really social businesses, also how Professor Mohamed Yunus is defining it, businesses that are able to create solutions for challenges in the environment or in the society, but through a business model, not through donations or grants, but being able to sustain and generate its own revenues that are used to solve the problem. And all this is best illustrated through a few more stories now of our scholars who have gone through the whole journey and who have created amazing social enterprises. And one of them is very dear to me because the young lady you see down left, her name is Joan, because she actually grew up in the orphanage where my journey also started. So she grew up in the orphanage, which lies next to Lake Victoria. So there's always a lot of mosquitoes. And she suffered a lot from malaria. I remember her also as a child, sometimes being the only one left in the orphanage when everybody else went to school. She stayed back because she was severely sick with malaria and couldn't go to school. So after primary school, she then joined our sponsorship program, was able to continue going to secondary school, finished secondary school, and then came to SINA. And there she started to unleash her potentials, realizing maybe that her own difficult past could actually be the strength for her own enterprise. So turning around her own story into an inspiration and drive to create a change, because malaria is one of the biggest killers in Africa for children below 5. And most people cannot afford treatment or cannot afford mosquito repellents. So what she created in SINA is called Euganics, a social enterprise that is primarily producing organic mosquito repellent soap and also other mosquito repellent products like lotions and creams and candles, but primarily soap. And the soap is sold mostly in the tourism industry, but now also since COVID, since tourism was down, now also internationally abroad at a high profit margin. And then the extra profits she's generating is then subsidizing sales into the villages where especially young mothers with children could otherwise not afford the soap. And through the subsidization, they're able to buy the soap at the same price as any other ordinary soap. And this, they're able then to repel mosquitoes and protect their children. So the goal is to fight malaria through an everyday product that everybody is using on a daily basis. And now Ugandix has moved out last year and has their own factory. She won international awards, was speaking at World Economic Forum, and has gone on from a shy young lady to an inspirational social entrepreneur. And another enterprise from the start of SINA that came up with the kind of idea of waste is only waste if you waste it. When you want to start an enterprise, we don't necessarily need a lot of money, we need resources. And many resources are around us if we start thinking outside the box, if we're able to see them differently. And plastic bottles is a big challenge in Uganda. They're ending up in the Nile and Lake Victoria, are being burnt. There's no plastic collection system across the country. And there's millions of plastic bottles everywhere. So what we started to build, the community, is using the bottles as bricks. They're being compressed with soil and then become really nice bricks that can be used for construction. And it has also now become an enterprise that has been doing the constructions in Uganda, but also training other communities in other African countries within Uganda as well to use waste materials to construct houses. And when we came to the roofing level, this is the first house that we constructed in 2014. We also started thinking of other innovative ways how we can not use conventional methods, but use waste materials. And in this picture, you see the roof is made from old car tires, which are cut into small shingles and then make a wonderful roof that for the last 6-7 years has never given us any issues. And as well, other roofs we tried, like old water containers and other ways to upcycle waste materials. And this whole idea of using waste materials has also become kind of a theme that many of the scholars started to see an opportunity in, because the resources are available. So another enterprise, another example is this one that is producing a flooring from primarily plastic bags and eggshells. The plastic bags are gotten from the dumping sites, from the garbage sites, and the eggshells are gotten from a big hatchery that has about 1 million chicken every day being born. So tons of eggshells that are normally just being thrown into the environment. But enterprise is paying the workers in the business a small tip to put the eggshells into sacks, put them out the door, and then they're being collected by the enterprise. And that makes the primary resource to produce a flooring and tiles, made from plastic bags and eggshells. And another enterprise in the upcycling, recycling, also inspired by all that, is called Jimuli Fashionability. Fashionability because of the fact that they're working with people with disabilities who are being trained to become tailors and employed as tailors. And they're producing primarily fashion and accessories from, for example, in this picture, old cement bags, sugar sacks, blended in with African fabrics. But also one of the flagship products is a rain jacket that is made from old sugar sacks out of plastic, but they're waterproof, and it has really caught on as an innovative product that was even exhibited at the General Assembly at the United Nations as a product of creativity coming from Africa. However, then the enterprise 2020 ran into a big challenge because most of their products were being sold into the tourism industry within Uganda, and that completely died. So they were having not really any market anymore. But at the same time, they had a new challenge since some of their workers were hearing impaired. They were not able to communicate with their own workers anymore because of the mandatory masks. So without lip reading and reading the expressions, it was hard to communicate. So what they did is they created a mask that has a see-through plastic inlet that allows for hearing impaired people to still communicate while having a mask. And they were one of the first ones in the world to do this out of their own need. And this quickly went viral that they won a competition and then were live on BBC. And from then on have been able to sell this product internationally for NGOs and organizations working with people with hearing impairment. And through this, we're creating a new revenue stream that allowed them to overcome the biggest challenges through lockdowns of the Ugandan economy being shut down and no tourism being available. Yeah, and upcycling and recycling is not enough. We also have to take the problem at its core and find more sustainable solutions to not even produce any plastic in the first place. So another story is of Our Roots, an enterprise that emerged from SINA, which is producing organic and biodegradable drinking straws, whereby in Uganda there's a specific kind of grass, a luseke grass, that has been used by grandparents before plastic came onto the market, before the 50s, 60s, where plastic was internationally cheap and available. And then everyone started to forget about this natural grass that makes a perfect straw. And it's crafted by nature since centuries. So they rediscovered that this grass is available and started to collect it in wild spaces across the country, and are now cultivating it with farmers as a new crop to grow the grass. And then it's being cut and then sanitized and packaged and being sold as a new product that is fighting the single-use plastic in Uganda, but also across the world. It's now being launched into different e-commerce platforms, even outside of Uganda, that allows the people to create jobs that are growing the grass and as well doing the whole production process. And sometimes it is very small products that can also have a big impact. What you see here is from another SINA community. We're not only having one community by now, but we're having many by now. I will get into that in a minute. And this one is from a refugee camp, the Bidi refugee settlement in northern Uganda, where there's about almost 300,000 refugees from South Sudan who are living in the refugee settlement and having almost no opportunities for job creation or for any income, and are living from the handouts from the international aid organizations. And also their plastic was everywhere available. So they started to create bags from the taplines, the sheets that refugees would receive from UNHCR. And through that, we're able to create bags and other accessories to sell locally and within Uganda. And then we were able to support them and link them up with a partnership to get them small recycling machines. And today they're producing recycled plastic that women and youth in the camp are bringing their old plastics, are collecting plastic that they find in the environment, and are being paid per kilo for the plastic, which is then shredded and cleaned and then remolded into new shapes. And in this case, for example, the most successful product has been a clothing peg that you can hang clothes with that also, again, every household is owning and have been doing quite well to create jobs and opportunities through that product. And two further examples that have also transformed their own difficult backgrounds, their own difficult challenges into an opportunity. The first one is called TATW2022, founded by a young lady who unfortunately as a child was raped and wasn't able to talk to anyone about this experience for a very long time because it was in her own family setting. And through SINA, she transformed that experience to create an organization that is supporting other, especially women who have gone through similar experiences or who are being raped almost on a daily basis. Has been a big problem in Uganda. And are supporting victims of sexual violence and rape with immediate response. So picking them up from where they need help, often from the police stations where they're being called, but also through a hotline from the victims or the families themselves, taking them to nearby health clinics to not get pregnant, to not get HIV, and then if the victim wants, following up through police and legal processes, as well as offering psychosocial support through counseling over the long term, and trying to rebuild the lives of the victims. And all that started through her own personal experience, so taking that as a strength to help others. And similarly, another enterprise also by a young lady is called Chendi, Your Positive Network, because the founder was born with HIV. And throughout her life, she had to go through a lot of stigma because most people, don't want others to know that they have HIV, and if they do know, you might be, marginalized. And that's why often people forget maybe to take their medications, because if they're in the school or in a workplace and maybe didn't bring their medications, they don't want to have anybody notice. So she started a platform that sends out SMS services that people can subscribe to, and through the SMS are being reminded to take their medication. But they're sent out in a way that it is very inspirational messages, that anyone reading the message would not know that it is actually about taking medication, but it sounds like a very positive motivational message. And then enterprises also delivering medication packaged in form of gifts to the people that order it, to the workplace, to the schools. So it arrives in a way that it is not noticeable that it is HIV medication, and thus allowing people to, be confidential with it. So with all these stories, one thing maybe that has cuts across is this slogan that you can see in all the stories, which it starts with dreaming big, but then starting small, but most importantly, start now. So for all these enterprises, and maybe also for you in the audience, there's many things that we can start now. We don't have to build a school to teach someone something. We can get started to create a change, and then everything else will follow by its place if it's purpose-driven. And purpose is the most important element that everything starts with. And like I said, today, it's not just this one community where everything started from, that you saw in the first picture, but it has grown to a community of 8 spaces like that, where the same model and the same program is happening, out of which 5 are in refugee camps. And it is growing. It's not growing because we want to go anywhere and say this is the solution and grow through our own offices, but it is through a replication approach that young people who find value in the program are the ones that are replicating it themselves, creating their own local organizations, locally registered, and then it's local owned, but connected through kind of a global network, a global movement of all the communities that allows for collaborative learning, for shared experiences, but also to collectively steer the model and improve it and find out what works really best and how we can foster a change in the long term on the whole African continent, because the solutions for the future will not come from the outside. They have to come from the continent itself and from the young people themselves. And if we allow them, for example, in refugee camps, where it works really well, allow them to self-organize and find ways to create their own solutions and support those on the journey to become enterprises that can sustain, then it is remarkable of all the change that can happen. And I've given you just a few examples out of the enterprises, but to close, before we go to question and answers, it's also not just only the enterprises that are merging. Sometimes there's also other things beyond business that are really important. And here you can see a picture in one of the refugee settlements in Uganda, where one of our communities has actually built a whole amphitheater because they realized, more going into arts and culture as well, that the refugees are being provided with just basic needs like food and shelter, but there's also much more as a human we need and we want, and this is maybe as well entertainment and having something to do that is meaningful. So they created a whole amphitheater where sometimes thousands of people are coming together for open mics, for different activities, and are providing a space where people can showcase their own talents and be entertained as well. And similarly, in another refugee camp, in the Bidi one again, this is the current plans of similar space that is being set up this year, again, to allow refugees to, not just sit and wait, but to drive their own future. And this can be also through culture and arts and dance and music, and having a space that is built and owned and run by the refugees themselves for other refugees, and being able to self-organize and create a future for themselves. So with this, I'm again grateful to being here and really look forward for your questions and for discussion and for yeah, hearing how that all sounds with you, and if what can you create if people from difficult backgrounds in Uganda can create all these things, what can you create? So yeah, thank you, and I think I'll stop the sharing then here.
Thank you so much, Etienne. And as some people noted in the chat already, this was really inspiring, and thank you for all the great work that you're doing. So let's actually dig into those questions, and we have a few here already. I guess the first one that has received a couple of upvotes is, what has been the biggest contributor to triggering innovation and creativity at SINA? We saw a lot of creative solutions coming out. What, in your opinion, has been the biggest contributor to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think people are generally, I would say, very creative, especially in environments where maybe the resources are limited. So there's always creative ways of how to use something, but it needs maybe sometimes a little bit of this, we call it almost unlearning. Like, people are being taught in school or in the society often to just follow orders, to just do what others tell them. So it needs to overcome that. And then once people are actually realizing that there's many things that can be created that they can do, somehow the ideas just emerge by themselves. And then if you have a community, there's also a lot of power and value in the community, so that people share with each other and learn and grow together and are able to, yeah, come up with new solutions and new ideas all the time. But it is also important to, of course, look beyond Uganda or Africa into other contexts and learn from others as well, and be able to, yeah, also not reinvent the wheel, but find ways to maybe improve or replicate what is existing and working somewhere else.
Thank you. So it's about tapping into the creative potential that you might already have by unlearning some things that might be blocking you and connecting with the community to trigger that further. Love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Great, thank you. And I guess the question over here, when you were sharing the stages of self-organization, when people come together initially, they're in the state of confusion. And a question over here is, how do you enable people to adopt different beliefs in that confusion stage?
How we do that is, we don't really want to kind of enforce anything. Like, it's not, this is the right way, this is what you need to do, or this is how it should work, but rather find space for reflections, for everyone to question themselves. This is maybe how I've been used and socialized, by just following orders, or by being obedient, or learning maybe because I'm being told I have to learn this, or maybe following a path because my parents said I should become this and this, but that's maybe not aligned with my own purpose or the future I want to see for myself. So helping this reflection, as well as through life coaching that we do as well, for people to set their own goals and then set their own steps. How can they achieve it? And yeah, through this, there's a lot of purpose alignment that is happening, and then often people transform almost like a caterpillar to a butterfly, that people didn't know that they could even fly. But then through this discovery process, the purpose process, they are able to then start flying, because they have realized where they want to be in life, and then remarkable things will happen.
Thanks a lot, Etienne. And maybe looking at the self-organization model a little more deeply, there is a question over here is about how that model actually works. And if you could maybe illustrate that with an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one example from the main community that you saw in the first picture, it's on top of a hill. So that means we have always had a challenge of water. There's no running water, there's only rainwater that we collect. And Uganda has 2 dry seasons, and it can be about 2 or 3 months where it doesn't rain at all. So in that dry season, water typically runs out. So there's someone in the self-organization that is responsible for providing water. So now if the dry season is coming up and maybe water runs out, now there's about 60 or 70 people who don't have water, who might run to the person being angry and frustrated. And the person has to deal with it, has to create budgets, plan, find new solutions, find new ways forward. And all that as well will happen when you have and run your own enterprise. You'll have to deal with sometimes angry customers, find new solutions all the time. And so through the reality, our scholars are able to grow and learn the skills they need, and also choose the roles they're interested in, or the different areas or circles they're interested in. So one might go more into the finance, another one more into logistics, another one more into the training, because also the trainings itself are being run by the scholars. Once you're a participant, next time you a co-facilitator with a more experienced facilitator, then next time you maybe the facilitator with another co-facilitator, and maybe another one. Another 3 months later, maybe you are part of the coordination team that organizes the whole sessions, what happens where and when, and who's facilitating what. So by the time someone has reached to that level in this training, he or she is going to be a wonderful facilitator, trainer to help other people to unleash their own potentials.
Mm-hmm. So your self-organization model is not just a process model of how to divide up things and, how people work, but it's also very intrinsic in the sense you're building that capability internally and that resilience for that model to succeed in the future.
Yeah, so it's not just a way of organizing the work,
yeah.
But for us, it is more than that. It's a way of empowering people. It's a way of allowing people to build their own strength, their own capabilities, and it's almost like everyone can create their own curriculum by choosing the roles they're filling, and then gaining the skills in that area, and as well getting some support on the side, mentoring and coaching. But yeah, the role filling allows really to help the people to grow. And then it allows also us to keep costs limited, because as long as someone is here, also there's no fixed time frame. So people take up roles and grow, and as long as they grow and contribute back through the role filling to the organization, it's a win-win situation. The person is growing and the organization is getting the energy it needs to run.
Thank you. And I guess with all of, you said that the roles are also constantly changing between the people, but also I think at one point, if I'm not wrong, you mentioned that people might have different roles at the same time. So how do you create the clarity and the transparency in the organization about all of those different roles? How do you manage that?
It's more through the holacracy practice. So that we have regular synchronizing meetings, tactical meetings, where the roles are updating what they're working on, the projects, but also things can then change according to reality. Something has happened or needs to change, so the roles dynamically adapt and change over time. And we also have kind of a community part, so more the personal way, and one is also a morning meeting that in the communities every morning people come together for about half an hour, which can also help to synchronize, but also to connect more on the human level. And yeah, through that, it has worked really well to align and help to organize the work, as well as the growth and empowerment. And then, yeah, there's again this live coaching sessions as well that help people to maybe reflect further and set their own goals, and realize maybe that now I want to go in this specific area, but maybe I don't have the skills in finance, so maybe I just take up a few roles there to start learning more. Or maybe I'm very shy and I want to overcome that, and I want to be able to speak in front of people. So we have like an ambassador role that is taking around visitors when they come, and they come quite many. So the person within a few months will have spoken in front of large groups many times, and is then confident and can speak. And yeah, so people take up what is meaningful to them, and that helps them to grow.
Thank you. And can you share a little bit more about maybe some of the formal courses that may be a part of this process for entrepreneurs, right? You shared a lot about the experience that they might get. Are there any formal courses that they go through as entrepreneurs?
Not really courses. That compared to university or vocational training centers or something like that, we don't really have like a course that you get at the end, a certificate or diploma, but it's rather, and then the certificate says now you have learned entrepreneurship, or now you're a master of business. Great, but are you able to run a business? Maybe not. Mm-hmm. So our goal is rather that people live with their own business, and that's kind of the graduation, when they're able to go with their own business. But we have different processes that allows that to emerge. So of course, there's also a lot of maybe online learning that people can go through and take up different resources, so they can actually take courses as well if they want, or learn from different experiences from others already. But primarily we're using a bit of design thinking to help people to understand the problems they want to solve, as well as then kind of a lean startup bootcamp approach where within a week the team enters with the idea, and then every day are being challenged to go out, find out from reality what works and what doesn't, because nobody really can tell if an idea for business will be successful, but only the reality will tell. So they have to go out and find markets to convince people to maybe buy the product or to order the product, or to get insights of who the customers might be and who they could not be, and change and iterate along the way. And at the end of the bootcamp, there's a pitching competition where we invite external people from different fields who are then listening to the presentations. And it's also a great learning opportunity for them to present, because it helps them to really gain skills in presentation as well. And then there's a small prize money, a few $100s that the teams can win at the end of the first bootcamp to help them continuously refine their products until the point where others believe in them through sales, through customers, or through others who invest or support the organizations to grow, that they become financially self-sustainable. And many actually of our scholars have won a lot of different prizes, international awards, fellowships, things that there seems to be a lot of support for social entrepreneurs from Africa, especially if you're female and from a difficult background. There's a lot of competitions, fellowships, prizes that people can win, and that often allows them as well to gain some financial resources to help grow their business at the first stage where maybe more traditional investment is not yet viable.
Thank you. So it sounds like it's very hands-on and very practical, but people also have access to other resources, but the goal is to really help them get off the ground, right? It's not theoretical, it's really hands-on.
No, it is very, very practical. And then the theory comes in more on a needs basis. We as well in the beginning tried a bit like, of course, you have to have a financial literacy at a certain level to run a business, which for some of our youth coming from difficult backgrounds maybe is hard. But then when we offered financial trainings, people were maybe not interested. I'm not a numbers person. I don't like this. So the impact of that was little. But now if somebody starts running their own business and is making money, but then doesn't know where the money ends up, what happened with the money? I made some revenue, but now where did it go? Then all of a sudden the person will run to us and say, can you help me or us as a team with financial training to learn how we can set up a system and do accounting and bookkeeping and all that. And then all of a sudden it will work out well because they are hungry for that knowledge. But if you bring it in at a time where people don't see what is the purpose of it, then it is almost a wasted time to do that.
I love that. I love that, right? It's when you feel the need that you feel that motivation to go out and learn it, and it needs to be a pull, not a push of that knowledge. So really, really great. Thank you. And I guess it's also really inspiring how much the community has grown, and you shared a little bit about it, but can you maybe share what has been the biggest factors from your perspective that contributed to that growth?
There's two types of growth. One is maybe the community itself, the first one that has grown to now, a big space. And that primarily has been through the community itself as well. Like many of the buildings we actually built ourselves through the plastic bottle recycling process, also as a team building activity in the beginning. And also some of the funding even for making that happen sometimes was raised by members of the community. So it's really kind of been a distributed way, and where things will be and how they will be was through the different role holders, and it's still changing and shaping every day. New things are coming on board all the time, and that's also nice with the self-organization, that it's not a consensus building, it's not a hierarchy of someone is deciding for others, but it's through kind of objections. And if you have a proposal how the organization can advance, as long as it doesn't create any harm, then it can be done, even though if maybe not everyone is completely liking the idea or is finding it the most meaningful. But if it does help someone in their roles to see how it can advance, then it can be implemented. And then we have also the growth from 1 community now to 8, and currently we have 3 other teams who are coming to Uganda this year, who are also going to replicate if things are successful in Ghana, in Tanzania, and in Cape Verde. So it's starting, yeah, to become a movement, and I think it's mostly because of people being able to realize that they can be the drive of their own future. And it wasn't us in the beginning that said we need to replicate this model. It was out of this need that the first community started, but then it was actually a group of refugees who found us, that joined, and 9 months later said, if the goal of SINA is that we create an enterprise, can we not replicate SINA and make that our enterprise and bring it actually into the refugee camp where we have been living for 5 years to help others like us, that we can, yeah, see our lives not maybe as something that we have to be ashamed of, but we can create our own future. So we supported them with that, and the first replication was really kind of under the radar, without even getting approvals from the camp administration or the UNHCR, on the land that was given to the refugees. And from there it started, and we realized in the refugee camps, for example, especially, there's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of people with, yeah, a lot of backgrounds that they can use, but often they have lost their paperwork, or they're not accredited, or they don't speak the language. So not able to do maybe the formal things, but if there's a space where they can self-organize, then yeah, a lot can happen. And that's how more and more refugees actually came to us to start to replicate. And then next step was also beyond countries where refugees are hosted, so where the refugees are coming from. For example, in Congo and Zimbabwe, we also have now communities, and now it's spreading even beyond that. So more and more interest is coming from different organizations, from different young people that see meaning in this SINA model and want to explore it, come to Uganda for about 9 months to learn everything, and we train them with all the skills that are necessary to replicate it, and then they're going back to start and become part of our community of communities.
Yeah, and maybe even speaking about that a little bit further, I guess it's probably also on most people's minds right now. I mean, the refugee crisis has been, it's the world over, and right now, most currently, we're also feeling the effects in Europe. And there is a question over here about what has been your biggest learning about reintegrating refugees and, you know, helping them the way you've helped them in Uganda, and what can we learn from that?
Yeah, of course, it's a very relevant topic for last years, and again, unfortunately now, even more. There's of course 2 sides. There's the immediate kind of crisis response to a conflict, where people need, basic needs to survive and to be comfortable. But then, for example, what has happened in Uganda, it starts to become settlements, not just camps where people are maybe temporarily, but in Uganda, it's starting to become more settlements, because maybe people can never go back, or they might take years until they can go back, or find a new home in Uganda. So at that stage, it is more about development. So allowing the refugee camps to transform into places of hope or of opportunities, which unfortunately is not so much on the agenda of most of the organizations working with the refugees. Of course, if there's millions of refugees, primarily focus needs to be on keeping everybody kind of safe and fed and sheltered. But beyond that, there's much more that is needed. But that, I think, shouldn't come from the international organizations, but from the refugees themselves. But often they're not kind of empowered or allowed to even do that. So one example was, which was a very positive example, when COVID started in 2020, all the international organizations pulled out all the international staff from the refugee camps and brought them back home. So there was no one anymore on the ground that was able to implement projects. So now they needed still projects to be done. So they actually contracted some of our scholars, because they knew that they were able to deal with the reporting and can implement. And so it was some of our people who installed solar street lamps to renovate a basketball court and other things that before was not able, that refugees could implement those projects by themselves, because it was always contracted by organizations that would then hire firms to do that. And so the value would not be, or the money would not stay within the refugee camp. But now they were able to do it themselves. And I think that should be the way forward, that refugees are able to also maybe design their own camps. There's people that have skills in that, and they know what they need, and can be much more included and brought to a point of self-reliance. And then also can be a contribution to the society, not just a burden or a perceived burden to the society, but actually if they integrate well, they are becoming a driving force of the economy and can create a lot of new diverse input and solutions.
That's right. And I mean, agency and contribution is a core fundamental human need, right? So what you're saying is also after the initial crisis, you want to reawaken that need and empower people to actually do that. Otherwise, they feel left out from everything. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I know it's a difficult, complicated topic, but it really helps to hear different ideas and stories there. Maybe even taking a step back and looking at the role Teal plays in all of this, and you spoke to some of it at length about purpose being the core, of all of this, as well as you shared a little bit about self-management. But looking at the bigger picture, what role do you feel Teal needs to play here and in society?
Yeah, I think that there's a shift happening. Maybe globally it is already more advancing, but in Africa it's been maybe not yet so much on the forefront. So there's very few organizations that are using Teal practices, at least that we know of. But there's a few that are starting to come up, or also through SINA expressing interest, and some of our own enterprises and the SINA communities are using the same principles. And interestingly, for example, some of the refugees have said that how they wish maybe one day a government like South Sudan would be running on something like holacracy, because they have seen firsthand or experienced what happens if power is being abused. And that's very common, unfortunately, in many countries, that power is being abused and it's only serving very few and the majority is suffering. So if it's a distributed authority that allows people to organize themselves, and it's not kind of creating a bottleneck that one has to decide for all, but that there's more decentralized structures that people can decide for themselves, then I think not just for organizations, but even for potentially governments, for countries, for society, I see a lot of potential that this will be the future of maybe organizing ourselves also in more legal systems that are beyond businesses or NGOs.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you so much, Etienne. I think those are all the questions in Mentimeter. Since we have people here, I just also want to check, are there any, oh, something just came in. Hold that thought. Ooh, this is actually a really good one. How do you manage conflict within teams? And if you could share examples here would be great.
Yeah, it's a good question. There's always conflict within teams, as much as in Uganda or in Africa as in other organizations and countries, I think. Sometimes a little bit around the founding team that maybe develops different interests or ideas where this enterprise should move to. So there we have integrated as well some other structures, like nonviolent communication is a great tool or philosophy that we actually have in our team, in our core team, one of the first African internationally certified nonviolent communication trainers who can also do mediation. Sometimes it's necessary that people are being heard out, and then their feelings and needs are being empathetically kind of translated and realize that maybe people are having the same needs, but are having different strategies how to kind of get what they need. And if people start seeing that the need is similar, there could be new strategies developed how everybody's needs can get met. So nonviolent communication is one tool that we're using, but also through something called symbiotic enterprise. And we also have a clear distinction. Holacracy is great in structuring maybe the work, makes it very clear and transparent, but it's not so clear and transparent about the community. Like there's also beyond work, there's a lot of conflict in the community, especially if you have 60, 70 young people living together, there's going to be couples and jealousy and things like that. So how do you deal with tensions in the community as well as individual tensions or personal well-being that are also always existent? So we have found a more holistic way of kind of integrating this through being clear, what am I addressing? Am I addressing you as me, as a person, or you from a specific role to your specific role, and trying to create that distinction and the clarity that has helped a lot as well to kind of distill what is really the tension. Is it a personal thing? Is it a community thing? Is it an organizational thing? And then finding ways to process the tension based on that through different ways.
And what could be some of those ways, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, of course. So in the organizational context, it's very clear that it can be a governance tension. So meaning that maybe something is missing, a new kind of expectation that needs to be set. And then there's a process how you can bring in that new expectation and add an accountability to someone, that someone needs to do something new or different. Or tactical tension, maybe some kind of project or thing that needs to get done, if it is in the organizational space. If it is in the community space, different communities have found different ways of dealing with it, but there's often some kind of committee that, and also safeguarding process that allows now, if something has come up, to kind of hear both sides and collectively, and also through more traditional African ways of sometimes appreciative inquiry or kind of a justice system that is more communal, is able then to find ways to kind of restore justice or restore the community in a way that everybody is okay with it. And then if it is more personal tension, then it can be sometimes through maybe one-on-one mediation, or through one-on-one engagements, or through as well potentially inviting a process like appreciative inquiry or something to be able to find ways to process it.
Great, thank you so much. We still have 5 minutes left, which means we probably have time for one more question. Just looking at the audience here, if anyone has, you can also just raise your hand and ask directly. And if you don't, I have a lot, so I will jump in. All right, then I will jump in with my question. So you've been working in Africa for a while, and I'm sure there are some unique challenges to that environment. And I wonder, what do you feel is a unique challenge, and what could be a learning that is transferable to other parts of the world in setting up social innovation academies such as yours?
There's both. There's a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities. So one, in the space of social entrepreneurship, the really fundamental basic needs of many and millions of people is not being met. And it doesn't have to be a new app that helps people with something, but it's really basic things like access to water, education, and healthcare, and all that is not met. So every challenge as well is an opportunity for an enterprise. So there's a lot of possibilities for creating something, and also space to explore and experiment. So that's kind of challenges that are really opportunities. A bigger challenge, maybe across many contexts, is potentially corruption that is very much existent in many African countries, as well as in other countries around the world, maybe in different forms or different shapes. But I think there, over the long term, the Teal philosophy also has probably a lot of potential to counter that, because people learn to be more transparent and open, and not hiding something or kind of holding on to power, but to distribute it and to make everything transparent and open. And yeah, that also is kind of a clash against maybe some of the realities outside the SINA communities, where things are very different. But I think it also has already, on a small level, effects that maybe a community starts to transform in that regards as well. But of course, that is a long journey.
Yeah. And thank you for answering. It's great to look at every challenge as an opportunity. And I guess the goal would be to create enough of a critical mass to then influence some of those bigger things, right, that need changing, like corruption across.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Etienne. This was really inspiring, and I really loved hearing the stories, and I'm sure everyone also enjoyed this Thank you once again. And for people still here, I think 12 o'clock, so in 2 minutes, so different time zone, sorry, in 2 minutes, you can be in the main garden because we'll have a chef and we will be doing some cooking together. So Etienne, and I also know you didn't have lunch, so it would be great if you can join us and eat with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of the whole experience. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.